Hello. In this video, by popular demand, I'm going to be doing a speed run of the MySQL integration for NGINX Docker PHP setup. So right now, I'll do a git branch list and show that I'm on the main branch, and I can check out the PHP speed run as the base branch from which to start. So git checkout PHP speedrun, and then I'll git checkout -b to create a new branch called MySQL speedrun. So now I'm on that branch. Now what we have currently is a PHP service and an HTTP service. So I'm going to simplify the templates a little bit, and I'm going to rename the templates to volume templates. And so in here we'll just basically have the we'll rename this to the path it's going to be, which is just the PHP info path, PHP info, and then the home.html. Really, let's undo that, and I'll just run the current init script to get what the what things are going to look like. So /scripts init. So currently from this branch we get created this config folder. Really all we need is this, and then we need this folder here. So I'm gonna take this, and the only thing we're missing is the PHP info path. So I'll just copy HTML to volume templates, and then I'll copy the HTML info path into HTML and rename it as PHP info. I'm also going to create a to-do app as part of this tutorial, so I'll create a folder called to-dos, which will be the path I want that accessible on. And HTML is fine for this, but I'm going to put this in a new volume folder that is going to be shared between PHP and NGINX. So I'll call it NGINX-PHP, or NGINX and PHP, and then I will create a volume for MySQL as well. Now in the MySQL volume, I'm going to have an initializer folder that'll have SQL files in it. So I'll create a new folder of init scripts, and then in the init scripts folder I will have a new file called todos.sql. Then I'll also have in the MySQL folder a folder called db contents, and this path can be renamed. Oh no, it's been renamed PHP info. So I can go ahead and delete this. Now I can go ahead and drag the HTML folder into here, and I'll take home HTML and delete it since it's already in index that I copied from the actual volume. And I'll take http conf and drag it into this shared volume here. Actually, NGINX and PHP, really this is just for NGINX, so I'll create a volume for just NGINX, and that's going to have the http conf, and we can rename that as default, which is what it's going to be called inside the container. That's all we'll really need to get NGINX doing what we want. So MySQL will have database contents and init scripts, NGINX will have the configuration file, and then the NGINX and PHP will share the HTML, which will have PHP code as well as the landing page and everything. So now I'll do I'll get rid of anything that's not being tracked by Git using a git clean -fd capital X. Then that will remove the volumes folder. And in my to-dos script, I could fill that out now. So I'm going to create table if not exist to-dos with text type column of name text and ID auto increment. So the IDs can be auto assigned, and that looks right, that looks right. So now I will upsert IDs 1 through 3 with some to-do text all in one insert into statement. That is what I want, I believe, and I'll save that to format, and then I'll just quickly ask Copilot to look at this file and say, does this look like correct MySQL syntax? And it could be wrong here, but at least we'll see it has a small issue. So let's see if it can fix that issue. See what that change looks like. Could see what the changes it's actually suggesting are with that. So it's saying seems like just a little bit of a formatting change maybe. Or values text. Yeah, I guess it might just be a formatting change. So yeah, there we go. And hopefully that's valid SQL. We'll see later if it is. And then we have the NGINX only, the NGINX and PHP, and then our init script can start out as being quite simple. It doesn't really need any of this anymore since we have all this in our volume templates. We can simply rm-rf the volumes if it exists, or we could do the same thing since volumes is being get ignored. We could do the same thing with the get clean -fdx, and then we could do a cp-recursive of volume templates to volumes. So let's test that. And it creates a volumes folder with all of that structure there. Now we just have to configure the containers to look for those. We're no longer doing the NGINX conf. We know we're not changing that, so we're just not going to mess with it, even though it's confusing if you think that you're changing things and NGINX conf is actually changing things without you having any visibility. But we're not doing that, so we could just do the volumes / let's just copy the entire path there to this, copy relative path, and I'll go right there with that. So volumes / /volumes / nginx / default.conf is going to go to nginx etc nginx conf d / default conf, and then the volumes for the HTML is going to actually be in nginx and PHP /HTML. So I'll copy the relative path for that, and that will go /volumes / nginx and PHP /HTML will be mapped into the container as user share nginx HTML. Now that same path is going to work for the PHP service as well. And the PHP service is going to need an extension for the MySQL driver. So let's quickly raise up the PHP service, docker compose up-d PHP service, so that we know what we're going to have to run in a Docker file to create a custom Docker file for this. So I'll go ahead and create a php.docker file. I'll choose not to name this image, so I'll get rid of the image and just say build, and we'll go context.dockerfile php.dockerfile. Then in there I'll start from, well, I probably want to save that image that I'm using. So grab that so that I can paste that into here, get that same tag, start from there, and then I'll have to run a command. And we'll just see inside of the PHP container, see that Docker has some easy scripts for us that you can read about in the documentation for the PHP container, or the image, sorry. So you say Docker, and on the system-wide path is these scripts that look like this. So we can paste that for context, comment that out, and say goal to install PDO and PDO MySQL. So we'll run docker extension install PDO and PDO MySQL, and that's really all the changes we should need to get those extensions installed. So now we can do docker compose down, and we can do a docker compose build to build all of our services that require building, of which this is the only one. And then a docker compose up-d PHP service. And we could list that we have that, but I'm just going to trust that the package was installed, and we'll see if it's a problem later. So next we're going to need to add a MySQL. So I'll call it the database service. And that'll be the image of some sort of MySQL. And I'll find that with Docker Hub. I'm going to grab a bookworm version of Debian with the 8041 MySQL. And then I will call it DBC. For the environment, I'm going to get that from environment files, which I'm going to have to create using my init script. So we'll do env file, and I'll do one file that's just for the MySQL .env, and then I'll do a different environment file that is shared between PHP and MySQL so that PHP can know the password that it has to use. So we'll do my PHP and MySQL .env as well. So those files don't exist yet, but they will. And I'll copy this environment configuration also to the PHP container and make sure that's formatted correctly and remove that one. So it's just going to share this file, and the other one will have some private stuff I don't want PHP to be able to see. So in there, I'll just put this for context in here and comment it out, and then I need to figure out what are those things that I want to be inside those environment files. So essentially I want the environment files, let's just create a new .env file, and I'm going to add .env files to gitignore, star.env. That way sensitive details aren't getting pushed up into GitHub. So like passwords and stuff are going to go in here. And the basic file format here is going to be just environment variable equals value. So I check environment variables. You can see some of these ones are like the root password. It's like root password equals, you know, XYZ, something like that. Very insecure password. I'm going to put it in quotes just in case there were any spaces in there. There shouldn't be. Then I'll also need the database, which I'm going to call PHP app is fine. User, I'm going to call the PHP agent, and it's picking up on things I've done before probably. I'm going to need a password for this user, not for the root user, but for this user. And then I'm going to need the no other things here, but I'll have to go and look at my SQL configurations, and we'll need to do a couple things from here, such as the MySQL TCP port, which we'll customize to say like from the default of 3306 to say 3311. Then we can do the host is going to be the name of the service, which Docker Compose will provide as a host name, and make sure that that is the correct one. Host, MySQL host, copy that just to be sure. And we have the TCP port. The time zone would be a good one to configure. So I'm in Eastern time, so America, Kentucky, Louisville, or America, New York would be good choices. make sure that's formatted correctly for your time zone. If you're in California, this would be different, for example. And everything else should be good. So these are the basic ones, and then we're not actually going to use this environment file. This is just to kind of get some ideas flowing. And so this one at the top is going to go in the MySQL only, and then the other one is going to go in the other one. So MySQL env has just this, and this one is going to have all these. So comment those out as well. And what else? Both PW need to be generated randomly. So a good way we could do this would be with OpenSSL. So let's say, you know, for example, we want to do password starter equals, you could evaluate the result of OpenSSL base 64 and do something like, you know, 100. This is going to be more than 100 characters long, and you could, you know, echo that just to see what it looks like. So let's run this script file here. It's going to give you a bunch of stuff. Probably, realistically, the max password size is something like 32 characters. So if we do even 64 here, we're going to get like almost 90 characters. You'll just have to trust me on that. So 64 would be plenty for 232 size passwords, and then we can split it up. Now I have OpenSSL installed, but just in case you might not, we can play on the fact we have Docker to pull that from a container. So let's just look up OpenSSL, which is just like an encryption and secure socket layer utilities library. So Alpine, official Alpine, I believe. No, maybe Alpine is just some random guy. I guess sponsored OSS, so this seems like a somewhat legit. And it's OpenSSL supposedly, so I would assume that it has that program inside of it. But I want to pick a specific tag, so I'll pick this 333 version. And I'm going to pull that down, or I could really just run it inline. And so I'll say that really instead of running this, my OpenSSL I have installed on my system, I'll just do docker run rm alpine OpenSSL 333, and then I'll paste in the rest of that. So the default command should be OpenSSL, so I'll just say rand base 64 and see if this is able to use this. So yep, we see same result getting from the Docker container, and then this gets removed after we use it. So that's exactly what we need. Now we have a password starter that we can split into two pieces. So we'll do password 1 is first 32 letters, and password 2 is the next 32 letters. So that works. We'll use the cut utility, which cut should just be something installed with git bash. So this will supposedly do characters 1 to 32 and then 33 to 64, and we have plenty more than that. We could you know, print the starters length, and we could get that. So for example, get like 89 is the starter length. So we should have plenty enough to grab two passwords here. So we can say that the has length of that. Do the same for this. So here's our password, and it's the first 32 letters, and its length is 32. So we got a nice random 32 character password that should work fine, and it's random, so it's random-ish, pseudo-random. It's different every time we generate this, so that's nice that we can just have our init script generate these environment files with those passwords. So I'll comment out those comments, those just informative as I'm developing this, and then we can use those passwords as we need them. So let's start with MySQL and PHP. No, let's start with I have these reversed, I think. So the EMV has just this. So let's start with this. Just using this for context. So I'll say echo MySQL root password. I think that's what it's called. It's picking up on the context from earlier of password 1 to volumes db. No, I'd really rather this just go to /mysql.env, and then we'll do the same with this one. This will say replace the entire file with this. So since it's just one line, we do want to replace the entire file with this. I guess we could do a new line character as well, \n, and see if that works too. So let's just check this, see if we get some environment files created. Yeah, it doesn't like the new line, so it didn't actually create a new line, but I don't think that that's imperative, so I'll remove that. Let's see if we can add a new line. Yeah, so that's just going to append a new line, which has nothing, which just appends a new line, obviously. So that's just so we can, just in case, we can wrap around to the next line so that this is the last thing here. But actually, probably not necessary. So this one is going to put the PHP app. Probably we could just keep on moving with these things. Yep, so it's going to replace at first, and then it will append from there on out. So put the password to the TCP port. We'll just always have it be 3311. It's, you know, not ideal to have people know what port we're using, but it's they could still hack us and guess our port probably. So that's not really the biggest security concern. The biggest one is the password of the users in the database. Time zone, that should be it. So if we run our script and everything goes well, this should be deleting the contents of the file before putting this new line. So every time we do this, we should get the information that we want. And when we run it again, you should see that a flash of the dynamic password should change when we run that script. And it does. So that's working perfectly, as long as all these environment variable names are correct. And the convenient thing here as well is that we've ignored these end files, so they won't get pushed up to GitHub, but we can dynamically produce them with the init script. And we can probably get rid of all of our extra commentary here now. So there you go. Now if our files are right, we should be able to get the database going, but we'll need to connect our volumes here as well. So for the first one, it'll be volumes MySQL /db contents goes to varlib MySQL, where the data gets kept, and then volumes MySQL init scripts goes to Docker entry point initdb. That's where it looks for those initialization scripts. And let's check it out. So we'll do a docker compose up dash d, or we'll just do it in the foreground of db svc only. So we'll see the output as things are getting created here. And we'll need to connect to the database, so we would do that with something like MySQL dash user equals PHP agent password equals whatever the password is, and also database and we're running on 3311, so hopefully everything got initialized correctly, but we can check. So the database is going to be equal to PHP app, and that should be what we need. We just have to fill in the password here. So for the PHP agent user, remember this is going to be generated every time that we initialize, so we'll have to make sure we copy this most recent password here and paste this like that, and then cut that command, and we can run that inside of our container. So if we go to the container and we go to exec, we should be able to drop that in and connect to MySQL and then show tables. If everything got initialized, we'll have the to-dos, and we can select star from to-dos, and we get our to-do items. So everything is working just fine. Now in the future startups, the init scripts will be ignored and the DB contents will just be used. Now we can stop this with Control-C. I'm not going to mash Control-C to try to avoid interrupting anything here. And then now it says stopped. I'll mash Control-C to get out of that. And we don't really need any of those new lines. So what else do we need to do here? Well, we're going to need to write some PHP code for the app, the to-do app itself. So we could write this under volume templates. I'll do docker compose down. No, everything is down. So we'll just write this in the volume templates, and then we'll run the init script again, and it'll generate a new password and copy over all of our code. It might be easier if we could debug this while just running inside the volume, since it'll update live, so I'll do that instead. Docker compose up -d to take everything up, and then inside of NGINX and PHP we have the HTML folder, and inside our to-dos we'll have some index.php. And at first we'll just say hi. So when I visit the site, let's add a little link to that. We might have lost our custom link code somewhere along the way. Yeah, we have the default, so we might have lost that, but luckily it's on another branch, so you can just do git add dot git status, make sure we're not committing any environment files or anything like that. We'll git commit -m getting MySQL set up. And then I'll git checkout. Let's see, I want to just merge in some files. I'll just check it out so I can just copy it because it's just one thing. Git checkout main for PHP Speedrun. And I know in there I have my templates, my this is what I want, this body right here. So I'll copy that and then git checkout MySQL speedrun and go back. So now I can just fix up to make sure that this body has what I want in there. And that'll also need to be on the volumes as well. So then I can have them visit the to-dos page. And can have them also debug the MySQL connection at todos/MySQL. So I'll create inside of to-dos not only an index, but I'll also create a folder, MySQL, which will have an index in it. And this file is going to use env syntax to get giving Copilot some secrets, but that's fine because I'll be generating new secrets every time, so I'm not concerned about that. Start MySQL PDO. Looks pretty close to what I want here. It's kind of don't love that this is all in one line, but I think that that's gonna be fine. And let's see if I can set timeout for connection to, say, 3 seconds. Maybe that's something I can do. Alright, and then only print this if the file name is the same as the script name. So that way this shows when we want to debug it. And I think we have one too many parentheses. I still want to connect to PDO in both cases, but I just want to only print, let's see, I only want to print this something is messed up here with the syntax. That's what I want. Server script file name connected successfully. Only want to print that if we're on this exact script file and not if this is imported somewhere else. So we'll docker compose up-d. Now I have this. MySQL connector page is connecting successfully, which is great news. But what would happen if we made a mistake here? misspelled an environment variable name, we would get some warning getting printed out here. So if we didn't have this if statement, then we continue to import this on another file, we're also going to get connected successfully printing out. So let's try importing this. Import dot slash import the index from dot slash MySQL. I wonder if I can just do it without index.php there. And I'll navigate then in the browser to the to-do app. Okay. No such file or directory. Probably need that index.php to be specified. We misspelled that environment variable. Too many files open. Close all. We're in the actual volumes, not the templates. And open this, open this. So here, fix the name of this. And the to-dos is also printing this. So if we add this if statement back, then we can only print that on the debug page. So not on to-dos. Actually, I think it's doing the opposite here, maybe. The to-dos and then the connector. No, they both seem to be doing it. If the base name, let's see if we can fix this. I think something is off here. I think it might just be, it's not base name, I think it's just server script name. If $ server script name is fix to only show message if script name is the file name. Still not quite what I want. Fix to only show message on this page navigated to directly, but not when required in other files. I'm wrestling so much with the AI, I could probably just learn how to do this and it would be faster than trying to get the AI to do it. Maybe that's what we want. Reload, it works, go back to do app, and it's not there. So that was the intended goal. So hopefully that is what we want. Now I will start making the to-do app with HTML5, and I'll call it the to-do app in PHP. Gotta close this PHP, and then in the body I'll do an H1 to do app, and H2 to do list, an unordered list of bullet points, and we'll do some PDO stuff here. So SQL select star from to-dos. I just want to select text from to-dos, and statement blah blah blah, list item, row text is the thing I want to pull out there. So now reload, the to-do app, we have to-do item 1, 2, and 3. And I believe that is what the SQL initializer should have put into those, to-do item 1, 2, 3, which means that we are successfully getting these from the database, which was the goal. So just a few more little things to clean up. So I will, just to make the styling consistent, I will have the index PHP for to-dos match the styling from NGINX. So I'll copy the style over here. I could also create a CSS file, but I'm just going to copy this. And we'll put that in the index for the to-do app right there. That way, when we visit the to-do app, we get that style. Not sure, I've had this bug before. I don't know why this happens, but I get the language not coming in right. I guess it's because somehow the language is not getting set as English, but it's clearly English as far as I'm concerned. There could be some mistake I have here, but got the to-do app and it looks the same as the other page. Once again, not in Portuguese, not in Arabic. So let's see. If we were to, for example, pause the database and the timeout would happen, we would hope that that timeout would get triggered, but this is Speedrun, so I'm not gonna mess with it. And I'll just copy volumes to a copy, and then I will delete templates and rename this to volume templates. So we have all that code that we just changed, and I'll also want to clear out the DB contents because we don't want that to be containing anything. That would be pretty weird to start out with a database. You don't want to ever really push databases into Git either, because they can obviously get very large. So I'll just create that folder again, empty, in the volume templates. Now, Docker compose down. And if I run my init script again, I should be able to generate a new password, copy all the templates. It'll clear out. It'll clear out the volumes with its first line. Generate new passwords, create that environment stuff, and then I should be able to do a docker compose up-d, and it will take a little longer because it's going to have to create a database from scratch before it gets started up. Once it gets started, then the to-do app, I'll have to reload this. This will not come through yet because the connection has failed. So it's shutting down, temporary server, and starting up, and running on 3311. So let's reload, and everything's working fine. I would love to fix this Portuguese issue. I guess maybe it thinks to do is Portuguese. That would be funny. Page not in Portuguese. And then the home page works. We can go to the connector page, the demo page, the info page, and everything is good. So Docker compose down. And I will say that in the README, I can just quickly update this to say that now PHP will talk to MySQL over port. We did hard code this, so port 3311 when it needs to get to do data in the to-do app. And we don't have to do any steps because the environment files are taken care of by the init script, so all that stuff should be the same. And click the links you find on the home page. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a speed run, but I think that pretty much covers the changes. So we'll do git status, git add dot, git status, and there we go. We'll git commit -m, finishing the basic to do viewer only app, git status, git branch is speedrun, so I'll do git push -u origin MySQL speedrun. And now that is pushed to GitHub. So if I visit the repo, visit that deployment and check the MySQL speedrun, we should have this README being updated and the new services in the YAML file, etc. So that should conclude this speed run. If you found yourself a little bit confused about all the things that were going on, you can refer to the longer video where some of this stuff is explained a little bit more. But now we've been able to add a service to this configuration to have PHP be able to talk to a MySQL database, and making sure that we're creating nice long passwords for things and passing them around in environment variables so that they don't appear in our code. So thank you for watching. That should conclude this video.